Greetings, fellow puppet pals. It's your old friend Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
Tiki, Dragon, did you know that you're being recorded right now?
Yes.
Because literally a note just popped up from Skype that said, "Hey, avoid legal trouble. Tell your guests that you're being recorded." And I was like, "Oh, that actually fits quite well with with the talk to me pickles of it all." Anyways, folks, in these troubling times, we need something to aspire to, and my God, Jeff Pickles is a problematic main character to say the least, but he's got aspirational goals. He's got his head in the right place. He's got his heart in the right place. So we're taking a look at Kidding Season 2, Dragon. This is, of course, the very, very, very underrated Jim Carrey vehicle. I mean, I kid you not, folks. We're not lying when we say this has the best Jim Carrey performance of all the Jim Carrey performances. I mean, this is it. This is Jim Carrey's Rushmore by all intents and purposes. I've never seen him act better than in this show. And people are sleeping on this show like there's no tomorrow. I feel like people are starting to discover it because it was on Amazon Prime. But still, I feel like it's a shame that more people aren't talking about this one because I gotta say, it's crazy given how high profile Jim Carrey used to be and how good he is in this. It's crazy that this isn't like a Barry style hit, Dragon, to me. It's just insane. I don't get why more people aren't talking about this. That's basically my thesis for Kidding in general. Is I just feel like Kidding is just a criminally underrated show. It's just insanely clever. Of course, some episodes are directed by Michel Gondry himself, which is great. Kind of getting the Jim Carrey Eternal Sunshine reunion going on there. But just overall, it's just a great head trip of a show. A really cool what if of Mister Rogers. Like, what if Mister Rogers, harboring some dark sides of his personality and harboring some really tragic elements of his personality. And man, I can't say enough good things about the show. I'm really looking forward to talking about season two. I just binged season two is essentially one long movie today, and yeah, it's a lot to take in. I got a lot to take in. I feel like you're going to be more adept at this conversation because you experienced it episode by episode, so you probably know more episode by episode than I do. For me, it's like one big story that I experienced over a 5 hour chunk of time. So I'm going to throw it to you. What's your thesis on season two, Dragon?
My thesis is, Kidding Season 2 was always a two-part pitch of a story, and we were so lucky to see that second part fully realized. Of course, pitch of Kidding, kind man in a cruel world. In other words, Mr. Rogers in our world today. It's kind of like the question at the end of Won't You Be My Neighbor? Could Mr. Rogers cut in today's world? Like, what would his response be? We kind of see that a little bit with Kidding. It's we're continuing the brilliant track of Jeff Pickles without the safety net. That's where we left off last season. I think we made such a meal out of it here. As he works through the grieving process, his divorce, and kind of the future. This season's more about the divorce and the future. The grieving process was kind of the first season, kind of through kind of like a kind of an 8 episode arc in that case. Well, I'm sorry, a 10 episode arc in that case. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but overall, the question season, like, who is Jeff Pickles beyond his persona of Mr. Pickles? And season two really takes a deep exploration. I think the main thesis for me is that season two is a real deep exploration of an icon as a saint-like figure. Which, of course, famously, Mr. Rogers, it was always like, he always demystifies the whole sainthood thing. It was, oh, what's it like being married to a saint? What's it like having a saint for a dad? And of course, this whole season seems to be kind of like taking that idea and like, no, this is why a man can't be a saint. And of course, the big climax of the season definitely hinges on people looking towards him as a saint, and all the dangerous things that can come out of that. And it has a lot of Superman-like implications, if you will. All the scrutiny that comes with such a public figure and everyone that's having such a high opinion of one man, and like, can a man live a normal life and listen to the world, as it were. And season two, extraordinary Just extraordinary television. Maybe even better than season one. On the rewatch, I mean, this season is so tightly knit and so tightly you can
You
conceive.
know what? I'll say one thing. I'll say one thing about season two that's better than season one is that I feel like Will's story is
Mhm.
entirely more satisfying in
Much
season
as I love
two.
the first season of Kidding, at least half of Will's story is kind of it's really iffy, man. It's really
Pretty
kind of
grating. It's pretty grating. I'm not even gonna lie.
it is. But again, in certain respects, this season might be better than the first season. I'm blown away by all of it. Truly, I am. Season two was just it was so great, and I love they kind of released them two at a time. I like to think it was two at a time because that's how they kind of produced them. Basically, each director did two episodes in a row, so they kind of like kind
That
of
makes sense. Yeah, and I loved having the Michelle Gondry week dragon. That was wonderful in the middle of it.
Well, I like to think that was the logic behind it. Maybe it was like, where basically they know they're not going to come back with more of it, so they're just like, we're gonna try to get it as fast as possible. Originally, this was supposed to go up against Watchmen. That didn't end up happening because because Watchmen, I guess, blew up. How popular it was, and they were intimidated by it. I remember I was really ticked off when Kidding was announced, and then it didn't happen until like early next year. But we finally got it. It was worth the wait. So let's get into it.
All right. So, episode one, Dragon, the cleanest liver in Columbus, Ohio.
Was directed by Jake Schreier. Jake Schreier, big one he directed in the first season was Every Pain Needs a Name. That was the third episode of
Oh
the
yeah, that
first
was a
season.
big one. Yeah.
Has the big moral thing I love in that episode. The whole like don't you ever get tired of doing the right thing? I love that moment, and this guy did it. Uh,
All right, so this is all about like who is going to who's going to save Justin Kirk, Dragon? Who's going to save Justin Kirk? Not Andy from Weeds. We love Andy from Weeds.
Not Gideon Malik from APB, an underrated
Oh
show that
God.
was canceled. No, but just to
But
break down,
seriously,
yeah. But yes,
yeah. Go
so
ahead. Go
first
ahead.
off, I love kind of the big full circle thing we put forward in this season because you're at the end of the first season of Kidding, you're thinking, oh God, Jeff Pickles, he's done something that can't be taken back. He's hurt a human being. It's not like a bird, it's not like giving a parrot a seizure, man. It's a whole different kind of ball of wax. So you think, okay, we're gonna pick up right where we left off, but no, they throw you a really great narrative loop. They kind of plant a big old seed with the wedding tape. Oh, I love the wedding tape and how it fits
Oh
in
yeah.
just this
Oh
episode
yeah.
alone, man. We just have this this is great. Season two very much is about the beginnings of Jeff's family because we saw him dealing with the loss of his son last season. This whole season's about digging a little deeper. This whole season hinges on past versus the future, and we get to see the beginnings of the family through the relationship with Jill. The
Turning
relationship with
back
Jill.
time, if you will.
Precisely, precisely. Well, we have set up with the Dalai Lama. I saw it was like a fun, like a little cameo thing. Oh, only Jeff Pickles would have the Dalai Lama preside over his holy union. But oh god, there was such a big payoff with that. I'm so excited by it. And I wonder if the
Oh
whole at the
yeah.
wedding was kind of inspired by Jim Henson's funeral. I can't help but wonder that. The whole like, literally having all the characters kind of at this big event in the creator's life.
I kind of
Interesting.
got a sense of that. Yeah, yeah, I feel you.
This fun mystery payoff. Like, why of all things are we seeing this wedding at the start of things? And we had such an interesting
Uh-huh.
cliffhanger last season. Of course, we'll get to the end of that by the end of this episode. Anyway, so big link up. Let's talk link up. Okay, so it's still Christmas. I love the fact continuity wise that it's still Christmas.
And this is, I think, by all intents and purposes, probably the definitive Kidding Christmas episode.
Yeah.
What do you think? We
Oh,
had a
you're
couple
right.
solid contenders in season one, but this is probably the one that we do for Christmas in July, right?
I would say so. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So of course we have the phone call. Basically, we have this. So Jeff, he's just committed the act, and of course he's kind of processing. Basically, the whole oops of it all last season. He's processing that. And of course, here we go. We have a call from the Pickles platoon. I believe it's like it might be church affiliated. Basically, it's
Oh
kind of the
my
Boy
god,
Scout
it's
troop.
great.
And by the way, this is the guy we're going to meet later. Who's called the first guy who calls him, I believe, is the guy who, of course, will factor in by the end of the season.
Oh yeah, yeah, great setup there.
So again, this is the saint theme of season two for me, kicking off right here, where basically I believe this call, basically people they're calling like, and this young pickle platoon member had the most points. He gets to wish you his own personal, he gets to speak to you personally. He says, "Merry Christmas, Mister Pickles," and all that sort of stuff. And I like to think, and I could be crazy, I like to think that call brings him back to doing the right thing because again, he could have just hit him and kept on driving. He could have. Could have left
Yeah,
him.
it does. I feel like it kind of snaps him back to reality. That was my read on it.
And then we have this wonderful sequence where he and Jill, they're basically bringing Peter to the hospital after this fantastic bit from the trailer. It's like, don't do drugs. He just all the kids. Now there's a modern day PSA for you.
Pretty much.
So we have this awesome drive to the hospital. And I'm so in love with the editing on the first episode. The first episode is just such a work of art, man. I love how we have this great contrast where the episode has this great command over the editing, where we have the flashback to where we are now with a purpose of we see when Jeff's family started with kind of like basically the birth runs at the hospital and Jill's going into labor, to now when ultimately this is the night his family fell apart. And I love that dichotomy. As we're driving through, we have the light that essentially killed Phil, and it's still there. That effing light. All right. So big moral quandary, big theme of the whole episode. Big thing, even in the description. I got excited with this from like the episode description. Lying. Can Mr. Pickles tell a lie? So basically, it's a question. The choice of the episode in question is, can Mr. Pickles lie in order to preserve his family / the status quo, but at the cost of a man's life? And I love that all throughout the episode, he wants to tell the truth, but and think about this: throughout the episode, life is rewarding him for everything he's done, rewarding with the opportunity of like, hey, look, your wife. Every time he's about to tell Jill the truth, she says, hey, can you stay over? Hey, you want to? It's like, hey, let's wipe the slate clean, man. Again, life is rewarding you. You've done so much good all throughout here. You did one bad thing, yes, but you know what? We're gonna let it slide. But you have to tell a lie though, and I love that.
Drugs are bad after all.
True. And of course, we get this magical Christmas. This is why it would be on Christmas in July. Oh my God! Tell them about the magical Christmas.
Oh God! I mean, the magical Christmas is just, just basically like it's the same equivalent of like Bates Motel. Kind of like this Norman Rockwell Christmas that we can never get again, Dragon. We can never get it again, and it's kind of like the, that's the tragedy of it is the unobtainability of the flashback.
I mean, I love like he makes the Santa footprints, like the snowy footprints going up the stairs,
Yes.
And they have this great breakfast. He made like a gingerbread house and cookies and everything overnight. And then you have like the gifts are basically on the fly. Had no gifts. I had to go get things from around the house. He's wrapped up all these household items so intricately, including the dog. It's the most adorable magical Christmas.
Mr. Rogers thing to do. I could totally picture Mr. Rogers making that same move.
Love it, love it. So let's talk about Will here. So this is before we get kind of the big gift that's going to put everything into play for him. But Will. He saw that his father bought the house next door. He's saying, "Oh my God, my father's kind of a stalker here. Like, what is going on?" And he's actually going to crush his father's dreams. He's been very anti-dad last season, and of course, the big moment where the father and son were supposed to reconnect. There was a line to see him. Kind of deflated everything. Yeah. So. Will has this season-long arc opposite his father's, which is quite interesting when you think about it. So think about it. Will is going backwards within his arc. He wants to go backwards, where Jeff's whole arc, this whole series, this whole season really, is moving forward. He wants to move forward with his life, where Will, ultimately, he wants to avoid the divorce. And in a small way...
Will literally wants to turn back time.
Literally, and I love it. He wants to have his brother.
He needs to talk to Mary Poppins, Dragon, specifically Emily Blunt Mary Poppins. All you need to do is turn back the clock of the Big Ben. It's that easy.
True. Basically, Will, he wants to have his brother back in a small way and kind of be whole by proxy. But he wants to get things back to the way they were when things are simpler. I mean, I love that reconciliation. The hospital, he walks in there. We have my favorite music cue and kidding.
Dragon, it's not like modern day audiences can relate to that at all, right? Heavens no.
Heavens no.
What a concept.
I say, I'm always a sucker when they play that one music cue. They play that dun 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 on the guitar. Oh man, I love that.
Oh.
They hit you in the feels, man. It's like, oh, I got the big impactful thing. Anyway, so let's talk about basically we're going to mainly focus on the Jeff stuff. We're going to talk about Deidre a little later within things here, but let's talk about the big opportunity for change. Basically,
one thing I love about Deidre in this episode is how she is, pretty much Jeff's confidant. She's the one who's like, well, you were trying to protect your son from drugs, Yeah,
she's looking for the bright side. She's in his camp.
Right. She's the Princess Carolyn of the situation.
You're absolutely right. She is very Princess Carolyn this season, particularly.
Right.
So Peter, big conflict here for the start of things. Peter needs a liver, and Jeff Pickles is a universal donor. I love this little tidbit we got from Peter. I had no idea about this, or at least it was maybe mentioned very slightly in the first season, but now we get to actually see it paid off. Maybe Peter was a lapsed Mormon, and very lapsed in the grand scheme of things. And I love that his
Oh
family on the
God.
holiday, the rest of them are basically any potential donors within his family are also a little lapsed, at least for the day. They couldn't have had a drink within the last 72 hours, which means they cannot donate liver. And then we have, oh my God, I'm still drooling over this beautiful crossroad shot we have where Jeff, he goes outside the hospital and he finds his little baby hat. And we have this beautiful flashback right before his eyes of like Jill in the car after the birth of the children and like locking him in there. Says, "Let's go, Dad! Come on, Daddy!" Yeah, just like basically, like,
Right,
"Hey, you're a
right.
father now. This is wonderful. This is the beginning of all the happiest moments of your life." And basically, literally, everything Jeff wants in this moment is in front of him, which again, symbolically, he could move on with his life right now and have everything he wants without the man who kind of brought everything down. Potential again, he could have everything he wants if he doesn't tell the truth, but again, a man is probably going to die. So ultimately,
At his hands,
at his hand,
specifically.
he, at his hands especially. But again, Jeff,
Yeah.
he does the right thing, and his principles just won't allow him. His principles just won't allow him to let that happen. So we have this beautiful moment here. I love where Okay, I love when he walks up to. I think it happens after the big scene, but I love this moment where he walks up to Peter's mom and he picks up Peter's sweater she dropped. And says, and she says, "Oh, I didn't want to. I forgot to mention, but we love your show." It's like, oh God,
Oh man.
oh, it's such a beautiful moment, and just the man who hit yourself with the car in the first place. But seriously, big moment though. Jeff takes his family aside, and of course we have this earlier thing where you only use a bad word. He changes the old like please don't use a bad word. We can use a good word instead. In this case, he's amended it to use a bad word if a good word simply won't do. And of course his opening is
That's good. That's good.
big moment of like I effed up, I bleeped up, man. I where he basically off like muted. He tells him the news, and of course, like Jill shell shocked. We didn't even see her reaction until the next episode, and of course, he tells the doctor, like I say, I haven't had a drink. When's the last time you had a drink? June 21st, 2003. It's amazing. How do you know? Because it was the
It's
day.
my wedding day.
Yes. Then this is a perfect button on the episode, the phone call. If he gets the phone call from the Pickles platoon, and he has this really haunting bit where he says, "Have you been a good boy this year?" And of course, the kid on the other line, "Have you been good, Mr. Pickles?"
Oh God! Oh, I forgot about that. That's so
And I,
ominous.
I love that again. It's the reminder that Jeff is not absolved of sin here. He's not.
Oh,
Something bad. He's making
totally,
up
totally.
for it. He's taking responsibility for it, which is good. And again, in doing so, he's destroyed his family unit.
Oh.
Okay, that brings us to episode 1. Chef's kiss, man. Chef's kiss. To borrow
All
something
right,
from
so
you.
episode 2. Yeah, episode 2, up, down, and everything in between. This is the start of as if the whole alternate timelines of episode 1 wasn't high concept enough. Now we get a real high concept episode, Drake. We get a musical, a coma episode that's also a musical.
Yet again, Jake Schreier working his magic here. So let's see. I believe Jake Schreier might have had some Sesame Street experience. I believe he has that in his background of the kidding staff.
This feels like that for sure.
All right, let's see. So Jeff, he gets really introspective while he's going under for the surgery, and we have this really creepy. This is a bit always weird. It made me really scared in the episode where there's this bit where we have like the funny anesthesiologist. The idea that Peter, of course, is the good anesthesiologist, but again, they have the
Yes,
next guy on
yes,
call.
yes.
But he's making some fun jokes, and he's just trying to be in good humor. And then we have the bit with like the actual surgeon lady, the doctor, I guess, and she's putting them down, telling them to count backwards. And of course, as he does that, she says, I saw your Christmas speech, your Christmas tree lighting speech. My son really liked it. I didn't care for it though.
Oh God! Oh
Because
man!
basically, the Christmas tree lighting speech basically says your parents aren't good, and that's why they're sitting you in front of the TV. So it is kind of an insult to parents. And again, rightfully, he makes a really compelling argument, though. He's not exactly wrong. The point being, though, Parents are gonna have opinions, and you don't want to. That's the last thing you want to hear before you're about to go under, and then you start this question: did she say it or did he imagine it? Terrifying.
So we spend most of the episode in the real life version of Pickle Barrel Falls, which is incredible. Just very, very high concept and fun.
Well, here's what I love about Tig. I love this continues the metaphor of the season one ending, where again, while Jeff hit Peter with his car in real life, and we had this great metaphor for what the whole tease of season two was, that Jeff can't figure out how to get up the falls. This is the no going back season. That's the theme of the Jeff story. He can't go back to the
Sure.
status quo. He can't go back up the falls. At least, well, the episode explores that. So the puppets, the puppet characters, puppet time, they're very, I think they represent Jeff's innocence because they're all horrified by what he's done. Like they're the representation of him doing the right thing, kind of the safety net that he's lived in, and like Mr. Pickles, basically they're the representation of the innocence and the Mr. Pickles of it all, and they're all in fear of Jeff's inner rage and his suppressed feelings that, of course, resulted, and I think it expressed a little bit in Peter when he shows up.
Okay, this episode just made me fall in love with Justin Kirk on this show, man. It really did. I love Peter this season. I feel like he's a big step up from season one. What do you think?
I mean, he was fine in season one. You're right, he's even better this season. He's so good. So basically, they're kind of
I mean,
debating.
it's just like every scene he has with Jeff, it's so funny that like he's pretty self-aware about the fact that Jeff basically tried to kill him, and yet it's like, hey, buddy, we should go in on a competitive dog circuit.
But that's the fascinating thing. Remember, this Peter is this is just Jeff's projection of what Peter is feeling. Just putting all the guilt and all the bottled feelings he's had, basically kind of this
Right,
naked voice through Peter. He's beating himself up through Peter in this. And again, Peter, that was that big buildup. Like, how's Peter in real life react because when he reconnects with Jeff ultimately? How does that conversation go? And it's really fun the way all of this kind of panned out. So we get a little bit of column A and column B throughout and handling it this way. So basically, it's kind of a moral debate in song. We're getting the moral through song through a lot of this. There's a lot of really funny, heady humor, like heady dream logic within all this too. Like the whole bad anesthesiologist, like as he's punching Jeff, like, do you feel that? Yeah. Oh man, this anesthesiologist is terrible. Surprised we're not awake.
God. And of course, we need to talk about Dick Van Dyke.
Yes, we do. So I was gonna talk about all the Seb stuff with Dick Van Dyke, but
oh, go ahead.
well, okay, let's talk about. So the Seb stuff is really huge. It's where basically the root of the show, of course, is the kind of the feud between father and son. That was what the first season was very much built
on. It has such a beautiful payoff. Dragon has such a beautiful payoff. Holy shit!
It does, and I love the flashback narrative with Seb in this whole episode, which basically kind of definitely builds into the Dick Van Dyke of it all here, where the flashbacks reveal that divorce created Pickle Barrel Falls, which was a really great revelation. That essentially Pickle Barrel Falls was created. The whole genesis of the idea was that Jeff's mom left for Niagara Falls when she walked out on Seb, and basically the creation of. Basically, Jeff wanted to create a place that she'd never want to leave, which would be kind of even better than Niagara Falls, which would be Pickle Barrel Falls. And I love the parallel of the two confrontations between Seb and Jeff. Think about it. When we see off screen, we see Frank Langella essentially as kind of the younger version of himself. But again, we see him from the waist down to mirror Hopscotch, the giant Sasquatch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I love the direction here. Basically, he's confronting Jeff with a BB gun here, and Jeff's holding the BB gun, shooting his father. And I love. Here's the thing: Frank Langella. He always has my money with this show. My God, Frank Langella brings it so much. And we don't use a whole lot of Frank Langella. We use it so strategically and so smartly here. And this is the most Seb we get here, where Seb he's so vulnerable in this episode, and I love how he defiantly says in real life when he's kind of making his case for keeping Jeff on the air all that time and everything. He says, "I stayed, didn't I?" I love how he gets really. He's like, we hear from Maddie that he's crying when he leaves the room because he really cared about him. His wife left him with the kids, and he traditionally that's usually flipped around. Or he stayed. And he's really proud of that. He nursed Jeff's creativity, and he stands by that. And I love in that scene with the BB gun, like as Jeff's shooting him, he kicks him, kicks him below the belt. I love that, he says, okay, get it all out of your system because next time I'm hitting back. He didn't hit him off right there, but he did warn him that he was going to hit him back. And I don't think he
Sure,
actually
sure.
should have followed through with it, honestly, but I love the fact that he did warn him about it, though, which is kind of their relationship in a nutshell. It's warning him that the hammer's going to come down.
Yeah, Seb is such a fascinating character in this season because of all that, all that internal conflict that just kind of like boils over into such a peaceful resolution throughout it as we go ahead.
And again, it's always the fascinating dichotomy about Seb is that again he loves his son, he loves his family, but also there is that kind of that cutthroat businessman at the heart of it there, where he nursed Jeff's imagination and the escapism that built the place. Like he's taken pictures of the Pickle Barrel Falls that they built, and of course years later that's going to become a model for when they actually build the place, and he
But you
built
have
the
to
business.
wonder, like, how much of that is just like he could see the gold mine that his child's
Mhm.
imagination would be, and he fostered the gold mine.
That's
You
what
know what
I'm
I mean?
saying. That's the brilliant thing about Sam
Yeah.
Piccarello. So all of this builds together
Right,
ultimately.
right.
So basically, Peter and Jeff they had this really great song and dance, and basically we had the kind of this cathartic moment
Oh
in the
my
song.
god, the song and dance number is a highlight of the season for sure.
We had this great. Basically, we have to fuel astronauts rocket with catharsis, essentially within song, where Jeff's admitting that so many things that tick him off, and importantly, big thing for the end of the season here, he blames Jill for the death of Phil.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That's really big. He gets that, and he hates himself for saying it, but he does truly feel that, and that fuels the ship. And Peter gets out of there, so that's how he gets up the falls. But unfortunately, Jeff, he's out. But luckily, hopscotch, and I love the solution. It's such a great logical thing. This is how he would get up the falls. And again, the metaphor, the symbol is that his father picks him up when he's down, which is so
Yeah, so
nice.
much so, Dragon, to the point where like I totally thought that it was Frank Langella voicing Hopscotch and not Dick Van Dyke. It was a big surprise that Dick Van Dyke was voicing Hopscotch. Just
Oh, God.
because they did the mirror image with the father so well.
There's definitely a lot of Mary Poppins love this season. We know that. We know that much. So it's very whimsical. It's a very beautiful kind of like form of catharsis for him, and basically he learns as he's going up the falls here within the song. And of course, ultimately he's brought to essentially the fourth wall that's going to be missing later, where he gets to look through the cabin and he sees his childhood playing out in front of him here. And Jeff, what he learns through this beautiful moment is that Seb was his safety net. Again, hence the whole hopscotch of it all getting him up there. But for Jeff to grow from that boy with the BB gun, he needs to face reality. He needs to end the cycle, which is why at the end of the episode, I love when he wakes up, his father is like there with the rodeo bars that he ran away with as a kid. And these are not easy to come by these days. He gives him the rodeo bars. Such a beautiful little moment here. And it's also there's really interesting thing too where he says that his mother, because she was kind of a basket case at that time, she fed him ice chips for a couple days before Seb stepped in, and of course, in surgery, sometimes you have to feed people ice chips when they wake up, and so on and so forth. And I love this bit where they told me I have to feed you ice chips, which again kind of call back to the past there. I'm going to give it gives them the rodeo bars instead because that was their connect, man. And his little bonding moment kind of gets nipped when Jeff says, "You're fired."
Right, right.
But again, he
And that's the end
fires
of
him
the
to end the
episode,
cycle.
right? That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, that's the end. That's the clip. That's the end of the episode. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right.
All right, good stuff, good stuff. All right, episode 3. I'm listening.
Directed by Kimberly Pierce. I'm not familiar with her work, but she did a really good job here.
Yeah, really great cold open with the eyes, Dragon. I love the eyes.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to we'll save the rest of that for the payoff. But you're right. I love this. Basically, we're seeing
Sure, sure,
kind of
sure.
a blind child kind of come to kind of love Mr. Pickles even before he can see him. So again, he's listening before he's seeing him. That's hence the little double entendre with the title. It's quite nice.
Mhm.
All right, so Jeff has come up with a new toy for Toyco. So Toyco, in the previous episode, we saw Seb kind of talking with Toyco after the whole Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Without the show, it's gonna be a little hard to sell a toy. But the point being, they're not having some great ideas from the start. They have Play With Me Pickles, which essentially is a Mr. Potato Head with a pickle, which in today's society, unfortunately, children's minds wander.
Oh God.
But Jeff has an idea for Listen to Me Pickles, and I love the visual genesis of the idea. I wonder if you caught this. I love that when Jeff is when Jeff's in the MRI machine or the CAT scan machine, it has this green light, and basically it's like him in the barrel. It looks really, with the transition and everything, looks great. But again, all of this coming from this beautiful parallel to Mr. Rogers, where in real life, Mr. Rogers, he had to return to air, where he thought he had like all the tapes could be reran, kids would know the lessons, and he'd kind of like get into other things. But he was brought back by the need for him to return to educate the children. Asked to save the children, like Mary frickin' Poppins at Mr. Rogers ultimately.
Right.
And I love that we kind of paralleled that within here with all the friend mail. He has gobs and gobs of friend mail, and he reads every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tara Lipinski, thoughts?
Oh God. Just she's the neighbor to Jeff in the hospital, right? And you hear her in the voice box, yeah.
I thought this was
Tara
a brilliant
Lipinski, she was definitely one of the darker elements of season 2, so this was definitely a good thing to hit on.
Now, I wonder, this is what I want to get your take on here. So, of course, she has this big epiphany for Jeff, and that kind of inspires him to go forward with the toy. Jesus had enemies, where basically it's a question of, is she giving this advice as a form of revenge or a form of friendship, and that she's still loyal to the message and the, like the whole thing of Jeff Pickles, everything that he kind of put her through accidentally through last season. She's kind of a victim of Jeff Pickles.
What the read on it for me was that the whole incident actually kind of like brought, and we see this later on, it brings her closer to her sister. It actually like in some ways kind of like helps her along the path, makes her a better person, a more empathetic person. So, that's kind of my read on it, is through the freak accident, it changed her life, but it might have given her a better perspective.
I love her saying, like, history questions the existence of someone that everyone has a nice word about. Again, that's a really great way of, again, framing Jeff's thing this episode. And it's kind of the framing device of the episode here, where Jeff has an idea, but he knows it's going to be perceived really badly in the public eye. But again, it's for the kids. It does have a really positive intent. And of course, like, well, hey, if anybody loves you, you're not a person. Which again gives Jeff kind of a light bulb moment. Okay, this is kind of what I need to move forward to kind of end the cycle. He needs to do that. And of course, speaking of ending the cycle, Seb. I like to think that Seb, he supports Jeff after what they went through last season. The whole, like, I'm listening. You tell me, you talk to me, I'll listen. That whole, they actually have grown. He, as he says here, I failed him. I had 2 jobs, and I failed in the job as a father. I'm going to make up for that now. And I think he is on board until he hears the pitch. I like to think he was actually on board. He was going to, like, be open and everything until he heard the pitch that is going to hit. He knows is going to like lead Jeff in the ruin, and he is kind of right about
it. Yeah. This whole thing is just like a bad idea waiting to happen.
It is.
It's just like, oh no, that Jeff, like, it's one of those things where it's like, if Mr. Rogers didn't understand modern technology, this thing could have played out in a similar fashion.
Exactly.
Imagine Mr. Rogers with a Twitter, but worse.
This is reckless, but well-intended. It's a reckless yet well-intended product, and they kind of tease this up in the marketing. I thought it was such a brilliant idea, like a brilliant symbol for the season about what he's trying to do. Again, basically a toy inspired by the whole Christmas tree, a lighting speech, and he's really calling parents out on their, on like their hypocrisy. He's like, okay, I'm going to do it better though, and then we have Seb's intervention at Toyco, and Jeff stands up for himself, and basically kind of leads to Seb's retirement, and it was such a. I thought it was such a gutsy. It's so gutsy to take him out of the equation, but it's such a necessity of story. Where again we take Frank Langella, kind of our big heavy hitter of the first season. Again, we limit him, but again, limit him with a purpose that really kind of explodes wonderfully by the end of things.
I mean, I do think that Seb's arc. You're right. He doesn't have as much screen time as he does in season 1. But I feel like his arc is one of the more haunting in the whole series, in season 2 especially, so we'll get there.
Okay, Deidre.
DIY Deidre.
Do it yourself, Deidre. So Deidre here.
Catherine Keener, I just think she's another character that I feel like gets a lot more to do in season 2, and I think is all the more likable for it.
Absolutely. I love again, it really builds up to episode 8 here, but I love how strong the brother and sister pairing is this season. Where the thing about it, they're both dealing with their own divorces, and they're both trying to get. They both had the same goals this season. We reveal again, she was very pivotal in getting Pickles puppet time up in the first place. So she was very pivotal. And I love how like her whole thing in the first season was Deidre wanted more responsibility. She wanted like to be in the show, have man her own puppet instead of like kind of an arm of a puppet. And like this season, she really gets to step into her own, and kind of Seb gives her the opportunity here, trying to manipulate her, but ultimately Deidre, she kind of fights against that. And of course, by the same token, the divorce is a little rough on her, and she turns to gluing, which is a really funny run. I love the idea like things are stuck to her all the time because she's huffing glue. That's still really funny. I love that. Of course,
and she has a pretty interesting arc with Maddie this season too that we'll get into as we get into the penultimate episode.
Very heartbreaking. We'll get there.
Oh yeah.
So the haircut, big thing, big.
Yeah, I'm really glad this happened, Dragon. I'm really glad this happened. This was a great way to give season 2 its own visual identity.
They always have this really great cathartic demonstration of trust and kind of the symbol of change for the season, where Jeff trusts her implicitly, like, yeah, cut the hair, and I shall like shave like a big stripe down it last season, just cut it, man. And again, I love that Seb. He feels conflicting. He feels this conflicting emotion of pride, but he's also been outmoded. It's like you've been replaced by your children, but he feels a little bit of pride in her that he'll never admit.
I love how the haircut is basically like baseline 90s Jim Carrey.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of like not liar Jim Carrey, but maybe a little before. Yeah, it's it's like kind of a little me, myself, and Irene Jim Carrey.
Yeah, it's like in that like late 90s, early 2000s era.
Yeah, like early 2000s for sure, yeah. All right, so let's see. Will. Okay, let's talk about the big. So Will's story gets put into play this episode. So we really upgraded the season 2 story with him with the whole Deus Mathematica. Of course, another word for kind of like Deus Ex Machina, through kind of a magic book that we never learn who this book came from, which is very interesting to me. That was it from Phil? Because remember, Jeff just wrapped things from around the house. This is like probably a book within the house that he had. Maybe he forgot about the library book. So it's really interesting. I love this. This came from no one technically. It's interesting.
I mean, this story was just kind of like a good magical realism story, which I felt like there was a couple elements of Will's story that had magical realism in it in season 1, but they didn't go nearly as far with it as they could have.
No, they didn't. Like Will is basically trying to turn back time with magic via his brother, in a sense, trying to bring back his brother, the whole family unit, and we have these. He discovers these donor letters. So basically, his mother has been keeping secret from Jeff, where the kind of all the. We learned that Phil was a donor. So when he died, his body parts went to several children, several people, and saved their lives and kind of made their lives better. And this is like something that Will's kind of exploring here, but he's also in the book. There's like a library card with all these numbers and dates written on them. So basically, kind of a series of numbers by many people have checked it out over the years. And basically, this is kind of where the whole mathematics of magic comes into play here. So when he goes to the kid's house, and I believe the kids, like the house numbers for the kid's house, have the numbers for like one of the dates from the book, and we begin kind of the odyssey of like, oh, guys, turning back time slowly but surely, because the kid is still acting like it's Christmas, and it's not.
God.
We have the cold open with the corneas here, with the kind of the child who's like, I love the color purple. It's I love you have a purple hat. See a purple hat? No, the kid's cute. So
yeah, and I just think with Will, really quick. I think with season 1, we basically just spent the time, like, oh, he's hanging out with his stoner buddies, and then he's doing this really awkward courting of this girl, and I'm glad that they dropped that like right away, like right away in the season. It's like, I think we should see other people, and it's like, yes, good. And he does have a relationship in season 2, but A, it's not nearly as prominent in the story, and B, I love that girl, the Saris girl. I know.
Saris. Okay, so her name's Havana, but you're right. I just keep thinking like Saris girl. The Saris bits are cute.
Right.
I like
right.
it. I sorry, because basically she almost runs him over.
She's a lot more likable than Cassidy was. You know, like Cassidy is just like, I don't know what the writers ever saw in that dynamic.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't
So,
know.
point being, they fixed it, and we have this really great time jump thing about her, like saying, I don't think you can travel backwards. I think you can travel forwards sometimes. You think about something hard enough, and then you're kind of there. And I think we've all done this. Like, I've done this at some point. You always just want to spring forward. You can't necessarily will it to happen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, you think about it, like, be there, be there. And, of course, we have this brilliant time jump, which is a great connect, one, into Will's whole time theme, but also in the toy manufacturing. So 4 months later, toys manufactured, you know, and Seb's retired. And I love this whole, you know, the toy is creating with this whole Wi-Fi connect idea. Basically, every you know, kid with internet in their house, instead of using the internet, they're going to use this toy as a way of, like, you know, talking directly to their idol. And we have this little girl from the start of things who wrote a letter to Mr. Pickles. She's now basically she's in like a foster home or something, with another group home, and she hates it. And Mr. Pickles brings her some comfort. They sing this old little song here, really nice. And also, he's been trying to contact Peter. It's been unsuccessful until he sends him the toy, and now he has like a little secret message way of talking to Peter.
I love how Jill is just like trying to keep Jeff and Peter from having a bromance the whole season.
Which is great.
It's just like, for God's sakes, you almost killed Peter, and now you want to be his best friend.
And I love that she knows it's going to happen like that. She knows, I want you doing that thing to make people who hate you love you. But more importantly, very ending of things, we have this perfect note of the upset parent getting like all like the well wishes, like the good nights and everything, but then like Gavin upset. This is not the product I thought it was. I don't want you talking to my kids. It's effing creepy. And of course, like Jeff has this smile, because again, what Seb didn't quite understand is that it is a reckless pitch, but Jeff kind of wants the reckless thing. He wants to be criticized. He wants to be criticized for, you know, just kind of being himself, which he gets. So again, it's kind of like the whole like, hey, Dad, I got an F sort of thing from Man on the Moon, and almost.
God.
Yeah. Okay, it brings us to episode 4, one of my favorites. Oh my God, I love episode 4 so much.
Yeah, episode 4. Let's see. I wonder what grass tastes like.
Another Kimberly
Pierce.
So
of course we have the. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, another Kimberly Pierce episode. So.
Yeah. We have the cold open with oh God, I always forget his name. Dragon, I'm sorry.
Josef Putkovich. But here's the thing. I guess I missed it. Basically, I was so stupid, but I was so wonderfully surprised though, where I didn't pick up on the fact of who this was, because we have. We're in Croatia, so I really should have put it together. Croatia pops up on the screen, but really briefly, though. So we're in a war zone. We're opening it up. We have these 2 kids in a war zone, and essentially the kid's brother gets killed. And basically the only thing he has is you know, Pickles' puppet time to kind of, and he does an impression of him. Like when the picture goes out, he sings the song because he loves the show, and he basically is performing for the rest of the kids right as his brother dies. Really tragic. And then we cut to today. And we reveal this child is kind of like a burly, you know, kind of a street tough, and he's like probably a leg breaker for some guy, and basically he's at a toy store collecting some money and from a debtor, and basically as he's beating this guy, as he's about to beat this guy mercilessly, the Listen to Me Pickles comes on, and he's taken aback, and he's just looking at it like, oh my God. He sees this, and he takes it and says, let's call it even. And then when the voice of Jeff Pickles comes out of this man, I put it together, and I was so blown away. I was so elated. I was the happiest moment of the whole season for me. Oh my God. It's Josef Putkovich. It's the whole like, they're gonna animate you, Jeff guy, from the first season. Oh my God, I love this character.
Right. So it's a great cold open. It's a great kind of you know, putting the pieces together in your head of like, oh my God, like that's, you know, because at first you don't really know what's going on, and that's the great thing about the Kidding cold opens is, you know, it all relates back to the sainthood of Jeff. Like even in season 1, it all relates back to kind of like the hero worship in most of these cold opens.
Yes, and again, one of my favorite things in Kidding as well, before I put together that was who this was, I was thinking, oh God, it might be like this product might be used for criminal purposes, like we have like a new, like kind of the new drop phone being the Pickles thing or something. We can get messages across, like, oh no. And again, like you think some negative is going to come from this, and ultimately something really positive comes from it. I thought, like, yes, that's
Oh
the
yeah.
show, man. Again, kind man in a cruel world. It's not going to go the negative route, where again you think like, oh yeah, like the little girl's going to shoot herself when she's going for the gift, and like no, she's that sort of thing from like last season. We're doing more of it here. I love it.
All right, so that results in Jeff finding some solace amidst the controversy of the "Talk to Me, Pickles" line.
Yes. Speaking of which, so the controversy, like he's been on talk shows and everything, making press rounds. Like Jeff, he's dealing with the criticism. Again, basically, he's dealing with it like a champ, and basically, it's kind of like Mr. Rogers with an edge during the talk show circuit, as he's on the talk, and basically, I love that he like the one of the ladies on the talk is asking, like, how did I myself was a barber? I think parents are going to respond to this. Well, he basically directs blame towards the parents, like who give their children smartphones, for pornography and the stream school shootings. Which, oh my God, like this Mr. Rogers with a bite right there. It's like, oh my goodness, he's not wrong.
But I
He's
mean,
not
as
wrong.
we saw with "Won't You Be My Neighbor," Mr. Rogers did have a maverick side to him for sure, and I feel like this isn't inaccurate to how Mr. Rogers would respond to these times. I feel like Mr. Rogers maybe would get a little bit combative. I don't know if he'd have a choice but to get combative to get his word across in this day and age.
And yeah, and that's the thing. This is he is providing an alternative to kind of like some really kind of virulent kind of social media stuff that we've seen many a time. You can go really like people all as negative that sort of thing. He's providing kind of a safe outlet for that sort of thing. Like you can talk to people, but friendly people. So speaking of friends, friendship, of course, being a big theme of this episode. Basically, Jeff needs to make some new friends. Of course, one he makes a big friend in Yosef a little later on, but the immediate friend he needs to kind of reconnect with, per the advice of his doctor, Peter.
God, again, I can't get over these two bromance. It's a bromance for the ages, Dragon. It really is.
Yes, I love the running gag, by the way, through the season of like did we share like a soul bonding dream
Yes, 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 yes. The whole talking about the solo number they had together, the duet, I should say.
Now, here's the thing. Peter says no, and I think Jill knows, and Jill just hasn't said anything. Because remember when he starts singing the song, like she closes the door. Now, if you remember during the surgery when they like dun 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 dun, Peter wakes up during the surgery and goes dun 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 dun, dun as then so we cut to real life for like a millisecond. So I think he is.
Right.
I think the bit that Jeff brought up he doesn't remember, but again, I think the song he does remember, but he just isn't bringing up, or maybe he forgot about it after time has passed. I don't know.
One of the weird dream details where it's like,
Yeah.
well, I vaguely remember some sort of musical number.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm convinced like he that did happen. At least some of that happened for him.
God.
Anyway, so but yeah, so they kind of build a friendship, and I love it. I love how this show has such a mature relationship. It's basically at the ending of the two of them almost formed a bromance at the end of the season before he offered drugs to him. For a moment, because remember he caught him. He's like, I'm going to tell her the truth, and you're right because you're the kind of man I want raising my son. Actually, and he offers drugs. And that's the final straw. And of course, now they're moved past it. A lot of really great forgiveness in play. Now we have the irony of the situation. Drugs kind of literally tore Peter apart. And now the two men become basically, in a sense, you know what it is, Tiki? It's like the two men are becoming like each other again. Now Peter's trying new things. He's a lot more open and everything. You spend more time with the family, like Jeff. In this case, Jeff is now partaking in marijuana, and now as they're now liver brothers.
God.
Fun fact, little Mae Whit. I love how we got Mae Whitman, who of course I'm loving right now in Good Girls. Voice of Katara for the Avatar fans out there. Susie from Johnny Bravo. Point being, Mae Whitman, voice actress extraordinaire, is doing really good in live action on Good Girls. She was in this. I was like, oh, look who it is. It's Mae Whitman. This episode keeps getting better by the minute. And she had like the whole water thing, which is quite nice. Like the whole water being kind of a symbol in the show for moms and kind of the maternal side of water, how we're all born in water and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And basically, I love the idea. I love the great middle ground of the compromise that Jeff drinks marijuana. He does the medical marijuana through tea instead of smoking, which is a really brilliant idea. really kind of out for him, so he's like fully kind of breaking kind of like a carved in stone vow in a sense. He's not smoking pot, but
Yeah, it's still pretty much, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm saying it's like the middle. It's something that's right for him, where it would have. It's not fully
Right,
hypocrisy,
right,
but
right,
like the whole
yeah.
point is he's changing. So you're right. He is doing it. That's the point. But again, it's medical. The point being, he's not 100% anti everything now. That's the point. All right.
Sure, sure.
So within the bromance, we hear the Julie Andrews story that Jeff Pickles lost his virginity to Julie Andrews.
Oh my God, that's great.
And
That's
that's
a
why she
wonderful
wasn't on
detail.
stage to accept the Tony or whatever the award that she got. Love it. But I love the idea. He's only been with two women, of course, Julie Andrews and then Jill. And I love that. I love how simple
Hmm.
it is. It's such a sweet idea. And of course, Julie Andrews, of all the people, the wholesome people, I love it. Right. So the elevator scene, you care to weigh in on that?
Elevator scene. I'm sorry, Dragon. I'm gonna be better about these episodes once we get to the next one. But
Yeah, well, the impetus. See, they have some impotence, and they're trying to solve it by going to like the tallest elevator, and then like going up so the blood rushes to the right place. It's a little fun little bonding thing they do. It's.
oh yeah, right. I remember.
Right. Okay,
Sorry.
so Deidre and Eric Roberts, they negotiate. Eric Roberts, they negotiate kind of an Amazon revival for Miss Pickles Puppet Time, and it's so crazy that basically all her insane demands were met. Like it has to be free to children. Like no studio in the world would approve of that, but it's wonderful that they did ultimately.
With one big caveat, one big hitch.
Well, as Deidre is about to come into finding out, let's speak about that now. Basically, the situation is Stu- Scott. Sorry, I keep wanting to say Stuart, but it's Scott anyway. So Scott, her Scott, her husband, who is basically going through a divorce with right now, he did some forensic accounting. He basically tried to get her on a lot of, as we learned last season, she embezzled a whole lot of charity money, a whole lot of charity money for the Indica School for Girls, and then basically she's getting out of Dodge here by starting a charity, Deidre's Kids, which is spelled wrong, and I love it. For the as her embezzlement solution, and of course it leads to this really tragic payoff ultimately, where oh god, we have this heartbreaking thing. But I'm sorry, before the heartbreak happens, again, I love Jeff and Yosef having a conversation as he's like washing his car and as he's shaving. They're having this conversation about basically as like, oh man, if you're turning to your to your to the puppet erotica guy, you're absolutely you know you're in Dodge right now. You're in a pick quite the pickle, one could say. And basically, he assists Jeff in kind of making the call as he does it for him. Don't you trust me? He gives him the phone number to a complete stranger he just barely knows, by the way. And I love that. It's the utter trust he puts in the guy who almost replaced him in animation. He calls Jill about signing the divorce papers and basically wanting to do it on his terms, and he gets away with I couldn't say it better myself. Really, I love that relationship so much. I was so emotionally invested when we get to the next bit down the line. But anyway, heartbreaking arbitration scene. Tiki, go.
Yeah, it's a good switch back and forth between Jeff getting the puppets ready and oh man, we're gonna start a show and victory, the show's back on the air, to nope, every single puppet that you own, all these beloved characters are Scott's now, and
Well, half of them.
that's not a good thing.
Half.
Yeah,
But
half of them, sorry.
so it's kind of important because again, otherwise the whole show would be done if he had
Drake,
all.
I'm
No, it's
I'm
fine. It's
blowing
fine.
this, man.
It, what?
No, okay, good. Just go
Yeah.
ahead. Just
Okay.
go
So
ahead. I'm getting really self-conscious about how little I'm contributing to this right now. I'm
the point is
sorry.
the whole ukulele that was what broke my heart at the end of this thing where it's
No
like oh I
ukulele.
know. I literally went at the end of the episode. Not ukulele. It's like ennui, snagglehorse, thump thump, oops, astronaut, and then of course it was like, oh, there's one more, and then we saw him as he was singing as ukulele. Like the friend is a friend was literally the song that Yosef sang at the start when his brother died. It's like not ukulele. Anyone but ukulele. Started the Danny Trejo loves ukulele. No. Oh. Yeah. This fantastic episode.
All right. So this is where I started my marathon here. I did rewatch all the episodes, but I should be a little bit more fresh on these. I'm sorry, Dragon. These are really dense episodes, and I feel like I'm not doing them justice. So I apologize. All right, episode 301 or 3101, I should say 3101. This is probably my favorite episode of the season, Dragon. It's between this and episode 6, and I think together they're just fantastic. It's just a fantastic hour of TV. Like, this is just kind of like all the fantastical symbolism and puppet theatrics, and then episode 6 is like, okay, and we're in the real world now.
But I love how Gondry, he tied the two of them together, though. This one definitely, basically, it's the event that will spark what happens in the next one.
And this is absolutely the most Michel Gondry episode of the entire series, and I love it. Of course, this episode has DIY Deidre, which I don't know why I just get a kick out of.
Well, yeah, I get a kick out of it because of the idea. Like, the genius thing about the episode is it's a full half hour of like a new Puppet Time episode. So basically, what it would,
totally.
Kind of like Sesame Street and HBO era we're at now, that sort of thing. How. And I love the parallels of the real life events to the show's events, and of course, one being Deidre's glue addiction. Of course, her basically being kind of the lady handy with all the glue to fix everything. So it's great. It's genius. And
of course, the whole episode is about saying goodbye and moving on.
Yes, and I love the smart thing in the writing here, where the idea it's a goodbye episode for a practical reason, because again they lost the rights to half these characters. Unless they want to pay through the nose, that's why all these characters leave in this episode, because they can't afford them, and all because of Deidre. I mean, I love how all the puppets are angry at Deidre for what happens here. So again, it's like I assume Jeff wrote this. The point being, they're putting what's happening in real life into the episode. We're like, hey, she didn't fix it, she tore it all apart. Ah. But again, the whole thing built around divorce messaging. Really genius way of. I love that. Basically, Gondry's mission. Apparently, Gondry went on record saying the whole point of the episode is that you could sit down with a kid or an adult and have the message come through and be kind of warranted.
Sure.
And ultimately,
and I mean, it is really effective that way, man. It is. It's just kind of like this surrealist kind of. I don't know. There's just something about the way that it does mirror an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood that really just kind of ties it together in this great way.
Absolutely. We also have some fun things like Adriana Grande as the Pickle Fairy of Hope.
Ariana Grande.
I didn't say that, did I?
You said Adriana Grande. It's Ariana. You were close. Right.
Anyway, so a lot of really clever things. These are like you have some Mr. Rogers-esque examples, like the balloon message at the start, where it says, balloons, like they're great, but they're temporary. Like you hold them for parties, and of course, they don't last. And much like life, and they're going into the I don't know, and of course, the I don't know being just kind of the unknown of the future. And we're romanticizing the divorce of it all. Like
Dragon, you leap for an anthropomorphic baguette in this episode.
Oh my goodness, yes. And I love Ennali's the MVP of the episode. Ennali is the heart of the episode.
Is, absolutely.
Dealing with the shift in status quo. Basically, any kid who's going through a divorce is this French loaf of bread.
God, it's so silly and dramatic at the same time.
So I love that we've had this great episode of kids television. Excellent episode, fantastic, and they went out of their way. It's so gutsy to do a full half hour of it. Essentially, they were showing like an actual episode would be like. And then at the end, and I love it. We just got to send it at the very, very end, the heartbreaking reality of the French dip sandwich at Sandwich Hut. Basically,
yeah.
The idea is that Scott is sold out to make all the money from all the advertising. Is that over the years, Jeff Pickles is always shut down because he wants to keep the integrity of character. Or at least said Pickles is always shut down. So go the sandwich, and we're dipping this character who went through everything. This beautiful. It's like dipping him. We're taking when he takes the giant guy, takes the physical puppet, dips him in the onion dip or whatever. It's like
gosh.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm seeing Jeff's heartbroken expression. Like
All right, and it's not going to get much better for Jeff Dragon because we go into episode 6, the death of Phil, and I think definitively this is probably the best episode of the season.
Oh yeah, so I love how it's
episode 5 is probably the stylistic MVP, but this one has all the tension, man. It's got all the tension.
It does. So this is great. as great as the last, so again, basically the premise of the episode, as great as the last episode was, Jeff had one major miscalculation. It's an honest mistake. He had one major miscalculation in that how the message would translate globally. When, of course, the idea is they have all these other Mr. Pickles, and of course now they're back in business and they're adapting the show, as many shows do. And of course they get the same scripts, and sometimes, unless you really have the forethought with it, some things aren't going to get adapted well message-wise. And it's an episode about divorce, and you can't really write around that. So this is a real thing. I don't think it's real anymore, but for a few years around the time they would probably be writing this or be making this, this was a thing in the Philippines. Philippines are very anti-divorce. I don't think that's the case right now, but again, remember, this is still back during, like, right after that Christmas from a couple of years ago, and like around 2018, this would still be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, Philippines very anti-divorce, and this leads to the death of Filipino Pickles,
AKA Phil. I
yes.
love that double play there.
Okay, what I love even better is there's the big payoff of that. So Jeff learns on while he's doing an interview, he learns the news of what happened to what happened to Phil, and of course we have this bit from the anchor who's doing the interview, and she says, "Do you feel responsible for the death of Phil?" And of course, if you heard that again, it's like, "Oh my God!" Like, you're asking me, "Am I responsible for the death of my son?" And which, of course, we're circling around.
Right.
We're circling around who's responsible for the death of Phil yet again this season, and it's like, she takes a sip of water. Are you responsible for the death of Filipino Pickles?
Mm-hmm.
So fascinating ramifications when you think about everything here. So Jeff embracing change and growth, and well, here's the consequences. We hear about these broken homes all across America, all these divorce. Basically, divorce is now in vogue, and he's kind of sparked the flame for it.
I love that idea. I love the idea that Mr. Rogers inadvertently creates a spike in divorce by talking about divorce. That's one of the cleverest concepts of the whole season, Dragon.
You have that. You have death. You have like a legion of performers who basically are dedicated to a saint's cause without realizing they could actually be killed, depending on how badly the message is translated. And I love, again, Seb had a major point about why you have to keep a rein. Basically, if Jeff is on, you take the rails off of Jeff Pickles, he just basically goes straight forward with the message. And again, I think he did an excellent job with the episode, but again, could have been translated to other regions. That was the problem. Had it been translated, things would have turned out a lot better for him. But Seb is right, though, that Mr. Pickles does have a status quo, and when you have major shifts from that, like divorce, there are ramifications. I love all the bad ads, by the way, throughout all this. I love all like the sellout ads, like Stacy. Oh my God, man, the freaking phantasm is in this episode, folks. Stacy Keach. Get Stacy Keach with Snaggle Horse about like real estate scams of some kind. It's not a scam. Reverse mortgages or something. Anyway. So this is a poor Jeff. He tried to change and tried to help kids, and a man is dead because of his cause. And the Ice Cream Man is also paralyzed because that's where he broke his fall on an ice cream truck. So an Ice Cream Man is also paralyzed, which is just even sadder.
But he could walk again, right? Theoretically.
No. And again, they play Tika. They always had me with that musical theme they played during that snow scene, and they got it. They got me by the shortens. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right, let's see. So then the burial at sea. So basically,
all right. So one arguable kidnapping later.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. One arguable kidnapping later. We're at the burial at sea.
Just or I should say cruise ship from hell.
Or I should say the barrel at sea.
Oh God.
I love the barrel-shaped coffin. I love that idea, and I love the gag that it won't sink, because basically the bunghole, yes, that's what it's called. There's not enough holes in the barrel so it won't sink fast. Which does present an actual problem, because then you're going to have a dead body wash up on shore, which you do not want.
Right.
So just to economize a little bit here, funeral goes south, and all the Pickles, basically all the other Mr. Pickles from across the globe, they renounce their leader and essentially the patron saint of kids television. And Michel Gondry had a field day with all the well-shot wanton chaos on this cruise ship. It's like Fyre Fest on a boat.
Oh, it's chaos. It's absolute chaos, and I love it. It's just all the Pickles from around the world just getting into sheer debauchery.
It's a funeral turned into spring break.
Of course, Deidre has to answer to Pickleson or Pickleson's brother. Pickleson mysteriously missing.
Well, you remember what happened, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, I just love that. He just did that Admiral Akbar thing. He's still in Guantanamo for all we know. It was a poor pickle son.
Oh God.
Oh, that's so sad. And it's literally, it's like if you translate the greeting, it's actually quite pleasant, but it's like, oh, no one bothered us. Threw him in Guantanamo. God. Anyway, so Seb and Deidre again is the kind of put in perspective here. He gave Deidre the advice of treat Jeff like a child, which of course links to Deidre's ultimate story with Maddie, and that Deidre's parenting as is conflicted when she parents, and that she's not really a great parent, kind of following the example of her mother, which definitely will have a big payoff, and that's why Jeff was allowed to be off as off the rails as he was in Seb's eyes. And of course, Seb gives the thumbs up. Tiki.
Yes, big thumbs up from Pappy.
Yeah, she got the thumbs up from Poppy.
Oh God.
That's all she wanted. She wanted the thumbs up from Poppy and gave a sarcastic thumbs up on that cruise ship. Like, hey, there's your thumbs up. All this wanton chaos. So of course, the big low of lows moment we got to talk about. This is important. Last thing. Height of the bonding between Jeff and Will. Height of the bonding, Jeff then informs Will that Peter asked, his permission to propose to Jill, and he approved, of course, and Will does not want, because this, of course, puts the nail in the coffin of the relationship he's building with his father, and also he's talking about him being like the next Mr. Pickles, which I love this gunshot reveal, because they're shooting the barrel, it looks like Jeff's been shot in the heart, and you're like, oh God, did someone shoot him? And of course, you realize he's been emotionally shot by his child as he drops the tie in a pile of all the Mr. Pickles ties. He's like, oh, Jeff, poor Jeff.
All right, Dragon, I got to admit, a road trip to Pennsylvania has been on my radar recently. Of course, in light of everything going on, once everything returns to normal, hopefully, God willing. You know what's in Pennsylvania, Dragon? You know what an anchor park of Pennsylvania is?
What?
Hershey Park. So Hershey Park has actually been on my mind quite a bit recently, and I gotta tell you, this season in general, it's not a good endorsement for Hershey Park.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
I wonder, I'd like to. I wonder if they had to go through Hershey Park to get the mention, or what that whole process was like, because it's not product placement.
The Goldbergs actually went to Hershey Park for an episode.
Oh God! Nice.
Well, there's a fun story there. We don't have time for that. Anyway, so this was the next two episodes, 7 and 8, which are really good companion pieces, as you probably imagine. A writing and directing duo by the name of Bert and Birdie did this one. All right, so nostalgia therapy. Oh my God, I love nostalgia therapy so much.
The nostalgia therapy, Dragon. I'm honestly shocked that it wasn't directed by Gondry, because it's such a Gondry idea.
I know, right?
It totally is. It reminds me of Synecdoche, New York, in a lot of ways. Although that was Charlie Kaufman, not Michel Gondry, but still.
Sure. I see what you're going for, though. I see some similarities. But yes, genius concept, and complements the big theme of the season, that Jeff's trying to move on until he hits that low of lows from last episode. Now he's taking a step back in the next two episodes. The thing about 7 and 8 are really past reliant. Now we're really going backwards. And Jeff, this whole episode, he's retreating to the past and trying to figure out who he is. And that's kind of what the whole episode's about. Jeff repeating the past when he's been trying to go forward all this time. And of course relates to kind of Will's going back in time kind of a narrative throughout the whole season. So basically we're taking assisting the elderly to a whole new level this episode.
And it's such a great, kind of out there idea that works within the fabric of this show so well.
And I love that we allow Mr. Pickles to lie in this location. It's the only time, as we saw in the previous episode, he was given the opportunity to lie, he didn't take it. This is the way he's kind of skirting by here, where he can lie because it's not really hurting anybody, and it's a lie that's going to be forgotten. So again, he's kind of lying for the benefit of people. And on the rewatch, this bit really crushes me. He's helping a man who thinks, "Hey, Dad, can you help me tie my tie?" And he helps him out.
Oh my God, I know.
Last episode is the whole rejection of the tie thing, and his son could tie his own tie, and now he's he's tying it for him. Like, who the F are you? As of course, as he as it comes back to him, it's still a beautiful moment though. And we have all sorts of great, like, this montage is really great. We kind of go across the room as Jeff's kind of helping out each of the elderly people, and this is the most heartbreaking. This to me is the sweetest yet most heartbreaking thing of the whole episode. I'm just going to tee up here. We'll get back to that after we talk about some Deidre stuff.
Okay.
Annette O'Toole, man, the whole Louise of it all. Oh God, the Louise stuff, man. But let's get back to Deidre. So Deidre, she's stressing over Jeff having gone AWOL since the funeral gone south.
This is so relatable, man. This is such a relatable way to stress out about a family member, I must say.
Yeah. He's going to miss his own Smithsonian Lifetime Achievement Award. She's convinced, and the way she unwinds on this one is I love this too on the rewatch because early.
I'm not saying this specifically is relatable. I'm saying the whole stressing out and anxiety and panic is relatable, just for the record.
Well, sure, but to each his own. Though, I mean, for anyone who does unwinds differently, but. Anyway.
I'm saying, as a man, Dragon, as a man.
No, fair enough. Anyway, my point is, so I love that during the Toyko thing, again, like Seb Pickles dropped this great name drop that he said, like, we don't want when he's talking about like how the whole, the phallic nature of the Play With Me Pickles, and he says, like, we don't want a repeat of the Pickle Wiggler fiasco of '93. And of course, this app says the cold open of the Pickle Wiggler fiasco of '93. Basically, in cereal boxes, you could build a set and basically build like kind of the whole thing out of a box of the Maestro character from the Pickle Time guy, the guy with all the little pickles inside the thing. And they would go around, do little dances. Really, it's a clever little toy before you realize the horrific implications. Where it's like, da, 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 they sing the song and they kind of move around. And basically reveal that mothers were huge advocates and huge supporters of these cereal. It was something O's. Oh God, I forgot the name of the cereal, but it was something O's, and of course the O's definitely playing a role into what the toy did.
Right.
So Deidre, she's looking for a release, and the little pickle gets stuck. And she needs Jill's help. So it's an odd pairing, to say the least, of Jill and Deidre through really unusual circumstance. And this, of course, leads to big catharsis for Deidre as she realizes she's been effing herself, quite literally, in life. She's the architect.
And then Jill, I feel like, is kind of this is almost kind of a low of lows for Jill in a lot Oh God.
So Seb, you want to talk about Seb?
Also, just really quickly, I love that Darnell is the one who introduces Jeff to the retirement community.
Well, do you mean Darrell?
Darrell, yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though, Tiki, that's a different character. Darrell has a bit with him at the end of the episode. It's a different character. It's the one-off guy. I'm not sure who he is, but
is it a different character? Oh, that's my bad. Oh yeah. God, now I'm embarrassed. All right,
don't worry about it. Darrell. Remember, Darrell. I say this because Darrell's was my favorite episode of last season. I love episode 8.
Dragon, I'm terribly sorry because Darrell came in at the end of the episode. I got confused and I thought that Darrell had moved on to working at this place.
No.
God, now I'm embarrassed. Okay.
Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry. We're going to save you here because we're going to talk about some really good stuff. So, Seb.
Yeah. This is just, it's kind of a heartbreaking setup, Dragon. It really is.
We learn that Seb is sick. He suffered from a minor stroke, and he's at risk for a bigger one, kind of earthquake style, which is not the thing you want to hear.
Earthquake metaphor is kind of terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
It could happen a day, a week, a month, a year. I didn't say a year. God, that's hopeless, Dragon. That's some dire news right there.
It is. I love his dynamic with Maddie all throughout the series, and here it's just even better, where Maddie is kind of his confidant, like the little ones.
This might be my favorite Maddie episode of the series, honestly.
I love how perceptive she was. She saw that he's not. You wanted to say something just now, didn't you? And you let you. I think she's really perceptive, this Maddie. And of course, by the way, we should mention this too. Maddie's had this fantastic runner with her prize, or kind of a Red Rider of the Christmas gifts. Dolores the Axe.
She's a regular Mabel Pine dragon. Of course, Mabel Pine from Gravity Falls had a certain affinity with a grappling hook,
Mhm.
and this very much reminds me of that.
So we have this great
Anyways,
device put into play where we have Seb's diluted POV, where again after suffering a stroke, something got a little knocked a little loose in his perception, and he's basically, I think his feelings are, I think ultimately what's happening is that Seb's feelings are kind of guiding what he's seeing right now, where he's feeling that he kind of missed out a little bit in life because again, the divorce has been on his mind, so he's thinking about his ex-wife, which would be Luis, and he mistakes this a young black man for Luis.
yeah, yeah.
Which is quite fun. I gotta admit, it's good. It's just a great reveal and a great visual. Like, oh god, so clever. Like during the date when he walked into the bathroom, like, oh my god. And I love that Seb never found out. By the way, I love that so much.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's getting down the brass tacks of the big thing I want to talk about. The real reason I adore this episode so much. Oh god, the Aneto tool of it all. I love the bus stop, and I love that you're wondering why is Jeff in this nostalgia therapy place of all places after his low of lows?
Right,
Why is he here?
right.
And reveal Jeff at some point. It's implied that Jeff, some point in life, he tracked down his mother who left him, and probably put after she probably suffered from dementia or something. He put her in the nicest therapy he could find that would fit her needs in nostalgia therapy. So he went here in part to visit his mother. And I got to tell you, Annette O'Toole's performance just melted my heart here. It really did. It melted and it broke in a million pieces, like liquid, froze it with liquid nitrogen, then broke it. But it was basically the advice. Jeff's facing an identity crisis. He's not sure who he is anymore, like who he wants to be. And basically he kind of has this crestfallen reaction where she says, "Hey, you can feel anything, anything at all." We get the origin of "you can feel anything at
Oh
all."
man.
It was on the back of a
Yeah,
profile.
yeah.
So we're just demystifying everything special with Mr. Pickles in this sit down here, where Jeff's sense of family has been shattered, and now he learns that his mother thought of her kids as adorable paperweights. It's like adorable and funny, but paperweights essentially. They kind of weighed her down in life. She didn't truly, she left him without really a second thought, and that's that. Oh god, and we now
Sure,
know the whole
sure.
that she was pivotal in the creation of Pickleberry Falls. He wanted her to come back so much, and to find out like no, she left you. She
Well,
left
I
her.
mean, the whole thing of like, like was it where in Dragon a lot of it comes down like what Deidre does kind of mirrors this whole thing of, like
Uh-huh.
is that sacrifice worth the art? You know what I mean?
Precisely.
Because for the mother it wasn't a sacrifice, but for Deidre it definitely is. So yeah, I'm sorry, I'm kind of chomping at the bits to get to that Deidre
I
payoff. I'm
know, man.
sorry,
I'm
but
I'm
I
with
just
you there. Don't worry. We're getting there. We're getting there. But that's what
all
I'm saying. I
right, all
love like
right.
she has like this great dual line where she says you can always escape failure. And of course, in the position she's in right now, she's waiting for a bus that essentially never comes. Well, ultimately, I mean, the point being, it never really goes anywhere. And so again, not really. You can't really escape failure. Is kind of what we're saying with that. And it's a question of do we, dilute basically, is it delusional to move forward? Of course, what Jeff's whole storyline is here, and of course, as you said again, like what are you leaving behind? And ultimately, what we take away for the Jeff story here is that Jeff returns. He goes towards his acceptance speech. I love the bit with Darrell there, where Darrell advises him to face, yeah, I can't keep chasing her. Yeah, you got to face reality, man. And of course, Jeff faces reality and he gives his acceptance speech. And the whole point of the episode is the acceptance speech is not just him accepting an award, but he is coming to an acceptance in his life. I love how unfinished it is, where he says, "In my life, it's always been kind of the job versus my family, and now I realize it's an easy choice." And after what he learned from his mother, the implication is that it's kind of like the real life versus the fantasy life, and the fantasy life is more your family than your real life is right now, and that's the tragedy of it all right there.
Sure, sure.
Great stuff. Oh my goodness. Basically, he's doubling down on kind of the fantasy life, which we're going to see in the next episode, which brings us to 8. Yet again, I think they worked some magic. 8 is a phenomenal episode.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so episode 8, A Seed on the Rocket, of course. Oh, God, the way that it builds with the Challenger disaster, it's like
Mm.
that's something that must have had an impact on young Jeff Pickles, and indeed it does. Oh, man. Haunting opening, haunting opening.
And brilliant origin for Mr.
What do you
Pickles.
think of the actor playing young Jim Carrey, Dragon?
I thought he was really good.
I thought he was too. I thought it was pretty uncanny, honestly.
Yeah. So I love the Challenger thing was so brilliant to me. I think this is the reason it's hard to say what my favorite episode this season is because 8 is really good. And again, it's kind of the episode 8 runner, folks. I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes it just works.
For me, I don't think anything tops 6 just because 6 is so chaotic.
You're right, but that's the thing. We have so many winners this season. It's really hard to pick one. But the Challenger thing, of course, knowing what we know about Carol Spinney was almost on the Challenger, and of course, Mr. Rogers, in real life, he covered the Challenger thing he kind of basically had like kind of a thing for the kids too, and kind of demonstrating the rocket of it all. So this is a brilliant origin for like Mr. Pickles. Basically, he devised young Jeff Pickles came up with the mission, came up with the concept for the show after the Challenger because children everywhere were watching this and they were all scarred for life, and he wants to use television as a means to heal children from a tragedy. And basically the big mantra of the whole season.
I love that. It's almost kind of like a mirror image version of Mr. Rogers, where Mr. Rogers almost viewed TV as a necessary evil, whereas with Jeff Pickles, he's like, no, like TV can be an evil, but it can also be a really powerful tool. And so I love how there's a little bit more of an acceptance of the medium of TV with Jeff Pickles than there was with the real Fred Rogers.
Absolutely. I love, in this episode we get Jeff's credo in life, which so perfectly fits his character as a whole, where he says, something good has to come from something bad, which of course fits into the Challenger of it all, fits into like hitting Peter with the car, fits into everything in the whole series. This man's life has been defined by that phrase. Something good has to come from something bad. This is
why we love to write on the show, man. It really is.
That's what I'm saying. It's such a deep dive. Folks, that's why it's such a deep dive, man. It's so the writing's so spot on and flawless. Oh boy, there's a lot to cover, and I'm trying to economize it here. Let's see. So, of course, Jeff, he's going all global. He's filling in for all the Pickles because he's doubling down with kind of the fantasy of Pickles Puppet Time, where now he's taken on too much responsibility in the wake of his family crumbling and the acceptance of that fact, where like everyone he now says, "You're all my family now," and that's kind of sad. Yet such a selfless act. Though I'm going to be there for everybody. But how can you fault it? But how can you not feel pity for that man? Structure. What do you think about the structure of this one?
The structure is basically kind of like the reverse flashbacks, right? Like kind of filling in the blanks on everything.
Yeah. We have like kind of that splintering narrative thing here. We basically have this.
It's interesting, man. It's interesting because, of course, we get some of it in the actual flashback itself, and then we have kind of like a build-up narrative to stuff happening within the episode. I mean, it's not my favorite structure of the season. It's not my favorite, but I do think it's ambitious. It's almost kind of like a Russian doll structure.
Very, very Russian doll.
It's almost stories within stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we kind of showed all the events happening for like the first, I don't know, like maybe like first 10 minutes or so, 8 to 10 minutes, whatever, and then we just we film what each character was doing and building up to that moment. Like Peter, how he ended up getting drunk in the hand, and Deidre, going for why she's going for the axe to fight for Astronauter, and Seb with Blair on the like having some romance time, and of course the big pickle jar mystery. Oh, that's the big one, folks. The pickle jar mystery. We're gonna get to that one.
Oh yeah.
But let's talk about so this is a huge Deidre episode. This one. So Deidre, we learn from we kind of parallel with the flashback, and now we see out of all the characters that she lost, Astronauter. Not only we learn that Astronauter was probably the first character. And the most important, because again, Astronauter being connected to the Challenger, I thought was brilliant. Oh my god!
Yeah. Fits the timeline perfectly too.
Absolutely, and also think about it. So in the flashback, we learned that Deidre, she was thinking about going to Japan, and the way things turn out, maybe she had an attraction to Japan because of this. Maybe she had an attraction to Pickleson in part because of this.
Oh god, I didn't even connect the dots on that.
The unfulfilled life ambitions. So basically, in the past, she had the ambition to be her own person, but then the Challenger blew up, and then kind of Jeff, as destiny, kind of literally came a knocking at her door. and kind of changed the whole course of her life. The two of them made something positive in the world, and now she's got a second chance at as she negotiates with the Axe to put Astronaut on the Challenger, put her kind of basically not to put Astronaut on the Challenger, put the Astronaut on a ship that's not going to blow up this time.
How much of the initial decision to stay in New York do you think was based on, like, she had a moment of inspiration and she's following Jeff in that moment of inspiration? And then how much of it do you think is just simply her staying behind to protect Jeff?
I honestly, you know what I think it is? I don't think Jeff necessarily needs protection in that moment. What I think it is that the Challenger got her to the same place Jeff was, and then Jeff had like the direction of like basically he had the firm reason why you should stay, where he was like,
Okay.
I feel like going anymore, and then Jeff's like, here's what we can do. That's what I think it is.
All right, I like that. I like that.
Mr. Sour Cucumber. Oh my god, I love the Sour Cube. I was the most emotional I got in this show. Might have been like, oh my god, Joseph gets to be Mr. Sour Cucumber. It was so beautiful.
Oh god.
He doesn't have to
jeez.
sound like Jeff Pickles. He can use his own voice. That's
right,
so beautiful.
right,
and
right.
just as that moment happens, the Wi-Fi shuts down. And if in the last episode they didn't have the reveal that okay, he actually got to follow through with that. Okay, because he's going on this whole mission of recruiting the other Pickles with him. Oh my god, I love that idea. So let's talk about the climax. Climax with Bobby Belongo. So Bobby is kind of our obsessed Mr. Pickles aficionado, the leader of the Pickles platoon.
Oh man, this guy was a great like endgame villain. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think this was an awesome idea to kind of have like the obsessed fan be a villain in the show. Man, I really did.
Oh, it's such a brilliant idea, and
It's such a real antagonist.
I love that the kids made the little pickle jars that he used. I love again he's still he's operating in the spirit of Mr. Pickles. He's made his car look just like it. By the way, it's a really fun gag way back in the beginning of the season. Like Jeff Pickles drives a PT Cruiser because it looks like a pickle barrel, and it's like PT for puppet time. I love that idea.
Oh god.
Anyway, so I love the payoff of the climax of this episode where he's running frantically to the house after he learns that he's in danger. That's why they shut the Wi-Fi off because he's getting death threats. And of course, like they have this really mystery, like why is there a broken pickle jar outside the studio? Like what is going on here? And anyway, so Jeff frantically runs to the house and no one's answering because basically Jill and Peter are talking about the whole proposal thing. Or basically, she wears the rings. I promise I will seriously consider your proposal. I'm just not ready for it right now. So point being,
I feel so bad for Peter in that moment.
And she turned them down in front of all those kids in Hershey Park.
You don't go to Hershey Park to propose, man. I could have told you that.
Well, you should have told Peter that. Now he's getting all jaundicey eyes. Anyway, so I love this great payoff.
You go to somewhere like, I don't know, like you go to a Disney park to propose, Dragon.
Well, you're right
like
about
somewhere that actually has romantic ambiance.
True.
Anyways.
Or Jaws. Well, I would say Jaws, but unfortunately now. Anyway.
You can still propose in front of the Jaws that's hanging up, not the ride itself, but they still have the Jaws hanging up on the hook.
Yeah.
You can still propose there.
So we have this great payoff of Jeff saving the family by switching the house numbers, which also fits in the whole Fibonacci number sequence of it all. Basically, that's kind of the magical the Deus Mathematica thing, where basically we learn from the Stoner kids that they educate us in the whole Fibonacci sequence, which is a real thing, as you can probably imagine. But I love that, like, when the chips were down, Jeff, he saved his old family, and very thanklessly. Like, again, they didn't answer the phone. They were goners until he switched the numbers on the house. I love that Dad came through at the end of the day. I thought that was so sweet, so nice. He just frankly saved them without me.
Want to notice it.
Yep, and again, because most of the numbers more than he knows that his father did it, to be honest, though. That's the thing.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, now we're getting to episode 9. Oh, boy, episode 9.
And you thought this would be 2 hours, Dragon. We haven't even been talking for... Oh, wait, no. We've been talking for like an hour and a half, so...
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I don't mean to be all cocky.
That's what
like, it's getting close to 2 hours. All right. It's all good. It's all good. So, episode 9, The Nightingale Pledge, a.k.a., oh, God, this is the episode where you have to say goodbye to Seb. Jesus Christ. Oh... It's not the death episode for Seb, but it might as well be.
Okay, so again, Schreier So Schreier came back for these two, by the way. So, the guy who kind of opened this whole, kind of started the parties back to finish it with the closing here. So we have this great cold open. With we we get the series of events that happened after the ice show giant Jeff Pickles heads kind of were tossed out after the tragedy of Tara Lipinski. I love that Lipinski is still connected to a lot of bad stuff that's going down with Jeff.
She is, yeah.
So basically, these heads were found like at the dumpster, and they were put on like for convenience store robberies. And the idea is like they're one of these giant mascot heads, and they can't really be heard by the convenience.
Well, I love how one is the actual Jeff Pickles mascot head, and the other one is like a bad recreation of the Jeff Pickles
Well, no,
mascot
remember, that
head.
was the prototype. That was the first one. Then Deidre.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Sorry.
So then, point being, I love this. I love that. This is so perfect, though. I love that the good one got shot. So Deidre's head got shot and basically killed the guy on the inside. And then basically these heads end up in police evidence. And then, of course, Bobby was janitor at the time, and he found the head.
God.
Oh God, and that's going to lead to some really literally some heady stuff. Well, we're going to get there. So then we have the direct aftermath. Oh, here's the heady stuff already. Direct aftermath. Jeffy's giving chase to the arsonist, and we have this great full circle to the whole season, man. Oh my God, I love this. So Mr. Pickles is about to run down Jeff, and of course, like, oh God, now he's in the shoe, and like kind of a lookalike PT Cruiser of it all too. It's like, oh God, it's so fitting. So a great bit there. Then the aftermath of everything. Jill's blaming Jeff for everything. Importantly, she actually has it backwards, given what's going to happen in the next episode about the whole assigning blame for everything. Because remember, this guy's not targeting Jeff; he's targeting Jill.
Sure.
And let's see. So Seb. Oh God. So I love this. So the Seb. Let's cover all the Seb of it all, unless you want to save the ending for the last thing. But Jeff is sleeping on the set, and I love Seb guarding him with a rifle, very akin to the BB gun from the earlier episodes. So again, he's protecting him with the rifle, and Langella's, oh my God, Langella's so great here. Langella's great.
His breakdown here is probably like the most powerful piece of acting that Langella does in the whole series, I would say.
And before the breakdown,
this is just such a realistic depiction of dementia.
And right before the dementia kicks in, I love that he gave him some really good advice that does shape what he does in the episode, where he says, if a father can't protect you from yourself, he'll protect you from everyone else, which of course can be a huge lesson that Jeff takes away from in this moment. So then the breakdown happens, and basically what's so sad is that he can't separate the past from the reality of the present, and he looks like, there was a wall there! And again, this takes you back to the Dick Van Dyke.
Where's the goddamn wall, Jeff?
There was a door and a few windows.
Oh man, it's tough, man.
What gets me on the rewatch is that again he and Hopscotch were looking through that very wall he was talking about.
Right.
Oh God, and then here's the thing that really breaks me emotionally. This is where it feels like a Gondry bit right here, because even though how Gondry likes to see emotional Jim Carrey and stuff here, where we get he says where Jim Carrey's looking at his father, who is basically awake and conscious, but he can't speak. He says, "Say something." Say something, please. Like, oh my God.
Jesus. Yeah. I'm sorry, folks. A lot of this episode is just going to be us, like, reacting emotionally to the bits. I don't know what to tell you.
That was like, it's the fact that I love that was the last moment he had with his father was that really good advice, and then just it was the last time he's ever going to hear his father speak, coherently to him ever. And he gave him some really good advice that, kind of helped him be a better father. And it continues the cycle of the Picarello father-son dynamic, but for the better, repairs everything. It's beautiful, man.
It really is. It really is.
All right, so let's see. So,
right,
Deidre, okay, now we get into your thing. Big thing for you.
Yes. So Deidre, man. So Maddie becomes the sacrificial lamb to get the puppets back. And, oh, Jesus Christ, I love how Maddie is barely even fazed by the whole thing, but Deidre is, Dragon, if we have a season 3, I know it's entirely unlikely that we'll have a season 3, but this, to me, was maybe one of the few loose ends, is like, seeing how Deidre is going to react to this in the future, just she got her art back, but at the cost of her daughter, and, like she ultimately made the decision that the puppets are more valuable to her life than her daughter is, and Jesus Christ, that's such a frickin' dark, crushing thing. And, like, I definitely think that Maddie, of course, is going to be scarred later in life by this whole thing, even if she's not phased by it now.
Well, remember, she
And,
is a little phased
yeah,
by it,
just,
Tiki.
what?
She is a little phased by it, because remember, there's a really heartbreaking bit where two things. One, the thing that's going to get her later in life is she says, what would Grandpa do? She gave her the light bulb moment, like, what would Grandpa do? Which kind of gave her the inspiration of, okay, I'm going to basically do what Grandpa would have done, which basically means get the creative property, and basically trade the kid for the fantasy, make the all that. But at the end, when Maddie's being carted away by her father, she says as she's driving away, "Was it the risotto?" Because she made a
Oh,
risotto in the
God.
episode, and she's a part of her
I,
is wondering, like,
I
was the
forgot
cooking the
about
last
that.
straw?
Oh, Jesus.
But I really love that at the end of the day with the Piccarello kids is that they both became half of their father in this episode. She became the business side of her father, and Jeff became kind of the more like emotionally kind of like the protecting your son at all costs kind of side of the father. So I love they both kind of took something big away from Seb as he can't speak anymore.
Sure, sure.
It's got even sad where she couldn't. She tried like make him do a thumbs up and try to speak for her and everything. It's like, oh, like she's never gonna get the Pratt interview.
Yeah, all she wanted was that approval, and she's never gonna get it. That was man, Catherine Keener. I mean, this is
This is her
like I
secret.
said, Catherine Keener was good in season one, but yeah, totally.
All right, so big scene. Okay, Bobby. We got to talk about the Will and Bobby and their scene. Oh my goodness. So basically, we have the zealot who followed Mr. Pickles like a saint, which of course the big lesson of the show and like the big Mr. Rogers takeaways. And if you deem a man a saint, if you deem him kind of this holier than now entity, and if you try to maintain it, you see him as not a man. It's insanity, especially if you try to follow his influence. You try to become the next saint when the man's not a saint. It's going to lead to pure insanity, which is this. Where I love how imposing he is. He's in the boys' bathroom, like waiting for him in the stall, and he kind of leads the way out there. I love the damaged mascot head. And there's a practical thing I love about this, where you wonder why the damaged head, and he can talk through the damaged head because there's an extra hole in it, so that the dialogue can come out of the head
Right,
now.
right.
And basically the Nightingale pledge of the title comes from this scene where he basically says your mother took the Nightingale pledge, which means do no harm, and she killed your brother by not buckling him in. And basically now Mr. Pickles has breakdown and everything. Basically all this the idea is that Bobby is disenfranchised a little bit with Jeff Pickles because he's the approach he's been taking now, like advocating divorce and basically kind of speaking his mind, like the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. I'm sure that's the kind of stuff that he may or may not glom onto because when he's talking to the girls, the scouts earlier, he says like, ignore that stuff. Just think about the good stuff, Mr. Pickles. He's sticking to kind of the status quo that said Pickles built. And Will saying my brother's still alive in pieces. I talked to his heart on the phone. I saw into his eyes. I got a letter, an email from his lungs. Really good dialogue.
Uh-huh.
And what is your read on what happened here? Because Bobby, I kind of believe Bobby, but then again, he gets really diluted here, where I don't think he's necessarily going to harm Will, but he's definitely kidnapping Will here, like actually kidnapping him, not like taking.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm on the same page where I don't necessarily think he had like inwardly nefarious goals in
Like he
mind, but
wasn't a
it's still very
pedophile,
much just like
like the press deemed him a
yeah.
pedophile. He wasn't a. He could have been, but he probably wasn't a pedophile. But he still was kidnapping him, and he has the line, "I'm your dad now." That's pretty clear. The man is trying to replace Jeff Pickles and become the boy's father, and take him away and protect him from Jill and kind of the now demystified Jeff Pickles. So what happens, Tiki? What happens when he tries to cart him away?
Jeff Pickles just comes right up and punches him right in the face, just like basically just like punches him over and over and
Ten
over again,
times,
just
really hard,
10 times. Oh god.
in front of his son
Yeah,
and a bus
pretty
full of
badass
children.
moment.
In front of a bus full of children. So what's great about this is every kid has a Superman fantasy about their father. The idea, it's like an old term, but basically the idea that when the chips are down and like you always have like the action hero fantasy, your father's gonna stand up and he's gonna save the day in a way. He's gonna kind of be your hero. And this Will has had that this whole season. And again, that's why he was really, yeah, you ran over Peter and you brought our family back. All right, he abdicated that. And this is like the more healthy version of that, where my father fought for me as he wanted him to do within the divorce. Like now, like, hey, fight for me, as he did. And this earns major points and major trust with Will. All the respect he has for his father really comes to the surface here, and it's quite beautiful. And I love the line that crystallizes all of this, where he says, Jesus, or along the lines of like, Jesus wouldn't have beat the crap out of a guy. He says, Jesus didn't have a son. Yes, like that's the it's the line. But also, if you look at it within the Mr. Rogers terms, we know Mr. Rogers would have fought tooth and nail for a child's safety. It's like a question. We never saw this situation. Mr. Rogers, he was an aged fellow, not a sniper at all. We know that much. But you know what? When chips are down, if Mr. Rogers were to protect the kid from a predator of some kind against the child, I don't know. I think he might kick the crap out of him.
No, I think he'd get violent. I think you're right, Dragon. I mean, I could see that.
Thank goodness the situation.
I mean, Fred Rogers. One thing about him is that Fred Rogers kept in shape, man. He was like physically kind of a beast.
He was. Swam every day. 143, man. He was in. Anyway,
right. Right.
So then, big ending with Seb here. We have kind of like, again, honestly, this episode could have been the ending of the season, but then we take it a step further and it gets even better. But this Fibonacci.
I was actually wondering like where we were gonna go in the final episode.
Me too.
Like I do think this is we got one of those things where it's like a climax and then an epilogue. When you say
the emotional
like, this is probably the climax story.
Yeah, like next episode's the epilogue and the emotional denouement. This is the climax. So, beautiful realization of turning back time in a sense with the whole Fibonacci thing here, where we literally go to nostalgia therapy place and we kind of turn back time in a physical sense. Will has his hair cut finally, and it was poor Blair though. Poor Seb's kind of filling for Luis. That guy. He's like waiting to go.
I felt really bad about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
God, and it was a really awesome proposal too. Like, why don't we take $30,000 and just go see where the wind takes us?
Yeah. Oh God, it was great. And I love the ending here where it was whole "we're going home" Seb moment, where there's this beautiful realization of Seb and Luis. They're back together, and they kind of found each other, and again they're meeting each other for the first time. And I love that Luis, she's always about like going to Niagara Falls, but in this case, she's "we're going home." I love that. It's like I'm going. Like they found a way back, and they kind of found a way back to kind of what their family was. They sort of, it's the most unconventional way possible. Is it feasible? Heck no. But they, in their own little world, they found a way back to the status quo. And it's beautiful. And I got on the bus at the end too, where again it's like whether it's clearly like a kind of like a more like for artistic liberty, or like an actual bus that comes by then drops him back off again. I don't know, but it's beautiful and I love it. It's such a send off for Frank Langella. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
All right, episode 10.
All right, episode 10, the Dalai Lama of Puppets. That's what it's called, right? I'm not mincing that. No, the Puppet Dalai Lama. Puppet Dalai Lama. Sorry.
Okay.
All right. Mostly a flashback episode, Dragon, which is where it kind of by turn kind of becomes an epilogue. It's mostly like an exploration of Jill and Jeff and how they came together and how they are going to go forward in the future. And it really is kind of a nice sort of bow that frames the whole series as a love story at the end of the day. And I kind of like that. And I really do, honestly, Dragon, I really do kind of hope that this is the finale.
I know.
Because I think this is a pretty fitting series finale.
Yeah. And with the flashback too, I love how it's a full circle lead up to the wedding that we basically saw, like the lead up to that wedding. Like, how do you get the Dalai Lama at your wedding? That's kind of what the flashback is kind of building to, wonderfully. And you're right, it is all about the relationship. It is all about that. And I love they met at a jazz dance class so we could teach the Dalai Lama how to Charleston. It's called this. I love all the little details of the relationship. I love the idea they went to a bar and everyone's buying Mr. Pickles a drink. Maybe in curiosity, I wonder if he's gonna drink it, man, or the other. I really love this guy. I was buying him a drink, and he gave her all the drinks, and it's like, oh my god. But again, as selfless as this, she also gets drunk from doing that too. But Jeff he dedicates himself to a mission before his own happiness, and basically he's getting in his own way with the relationship side of things. Jill's response is, you're not real unless you move forward, which again is Jeff's whole arc this whole entire season. And again, we have this heartbreaking sequence where basically Jeff loves her from afar. He wants to be her friend. He does love her, he just can't act on it. And she's moving on. He says to watch her from afar until she moves out of the apartment. And I couldn't confirm it. I don't think it is, but I wonder if that was the apartment that Jeff, the frat house that Jeff lives in, for the first season.
Oh yeah, it could be. It could be.
Because we see it from we see it from an angle we haven't seen that frat house from, which makes me doubt it. But we saw like the dollhouse view of the place. But again, I don't know. Like it makes me wonder.
At the very least, if it's not the same shooting location, maybe it's implied to be the same frat house.
Yeah, like I like to think that over the years it became a frat house. Perhaps that's why.
Right. I mean, honestly, it still could be a frat house because this very much does kind of feel like Jeff and Jill's college years.
I know, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a little after Jeff's college years, but her college years, sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's her college years. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that's the thing, too, where, it's in my head, King, because remember, at the start of the season, he didn't, Seb put him with Deidre instead of his frat house apartment. He didn't want to do that. So, again, perhaps because of all the memories he has in the frat house. It's kind of, that was my line of thought there.
Right.
All right, so Dalai Lama. Oh my goodness, I love the Dalai Lama stuff so much. He's doing the Charleston with the Dalai Lama, which in itself is great. And then we have this brilliant, beautiful scene. The dialogue is so flawless in this scene. Where Salvador Dalai Lama already gets all the points in the world. Salvador Dalai Lama. I love it. And again, fits into the time theme too, with the slowing down time. Perfect metaphor. And then also the cold open, it's the most out of left field cold open we ever had. We're in 1706 and we see this kind of almost feudalist-esque era with
You know what this reminds me of, right, Dragon?
What does it remind you of?
It reminds me of The Leftovers a little bit.
Really?
Well, how The Leftovers would do these cold opens where they go really far back in time and it doesn't directly relate to the characters, but it very much relates to the themes.
Wasn't there a caveman thing?
Yeah. There was a caveman one in season 2, and then in season 3 it was the the old timey Christian community, the Christian community in the 1800s.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So basically there's a link up with that, with basically the idea that the Dalai Lama he says basically that was him. Now either it's a multi-life thing, or the idea how Jeff has many Mr. Pickles. It would be the Dalai Lama, as the position got passed over, he's living all those lives. But again, he does believe in reincarnation, so might also be the case there. The point being, it's ambiguous and again plays with time as the episode does. Anyway, back to the dialogue here. So I love the scene where basically he says, Jeff lays his issue on the Dalai Lama here, basically saying he's in love with Jill, but he can't act on it because he's married to his mission. And the Dalai Lama has this beautifully simple piece of advice for him. He says, "I am a monk. You are a children's puppet man." And then it gets even deeper. It gets even deeper, and he kind of cuts it off with a really bad puppet voice. But he says, "Your calling is to raise the world's children. But perhaps you fear to have children of your own because your mom abandoned you."
Oh, man.
No, but seriously, the line before that, though, was really solid.
Yeah.
So just fantastic advice from the Dalai Lama. Is perfect, and that kind of inspires Jeff. He does. We have the freeze. The idea that the Dalai Lama also says this, and this quotes the big ending of the episode. Where the Dalai Lama says, "We only feel when we feel true happiness. The only way we're ever going to feel true happiness is if time froze forever." And it's a great idea. And we do this kind of big. It's almost like Big Fish, where we kind of freeze time when you see.
It's very Big Fish-esque for sure.
I love that we do the time stop in the past where he kind of catches up to Jill. I love the whole little paperweight of the New York Public Library, which is kind of a dual reference one that Will, when he's trying to affect time, Will had a little paperweight for the New York Public Library. And also, it's Jeff's mom equating children to paperweights. So, anyway, so we go to the wedding, and the sharpest cut in the whole season, where it says, I do, and then Jeff says, I do, as he gets through, I do blame you, because Jill's begging him to blame her. Love that cut.
Love that cut.
And the perfect payoff to the episode 2 where he says he blames Jill, but he will never tell her that, and he does because he can't lie. He tells her. It all lines up so perfectly, man. It's oh god. So, the quote Peter Gould, man, Swiss egg, Fabergé watch.
Right.
So then, so fun fact: when this came out, it was daylight savings time, or at least I believe I forget if it was when the last episode came out. It was daylight savings, or like one, I hate all the BS, daylight savings, spring forward, all that sort of crap. But the point being, highlight. I don't know if it's just ridiculously coincidental or what, but the whole thing builds to Jeff in the modern day saying, I can't be there for you all the time, but you should be there for each other. You should be there for your family, should be there for you. So turn the clocks back. Spend an hour with your family. And we see, Yosef as sour cucumber again. He's in his own voice. So beautiful. And the Lipinski sisters, you're all I have now, which is beautiful. They've reconnected. An astronaut goes to space. And the best thing of all happens. Jeff and Jill, they meet with Phil's heart. He's running a marathon. Then the Fibonacci sequence fully gets paid off. You're at the last year was 1597, and that's the tag on the marathon runner who basically runs there. And Jill brought her stethoscope, and they both listen to the heartbeat. And then you have the money shot where time stops because they're experiencing true happiness. And in a moment with the editing, this is so brilliant with the editing. I'm sorry. Do you want to take us through the reverse shot of the editing?
Well, really yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm sorry. It's a lot.
Me, buddy.
Really.
Yeah. So with the heart, listening to the heart, we get the reverse shots of like Jeff walking down the stairs or walking up the stairs, walking down the stairs, the footprints dissolving, and then the twins being born, and oh god, basically we go from the car crash to Christmas morning to Christmas Eve to the twins being born to the sonogram, right? And listening to the heartbeat on the sonogram for the first time.
Yes.
And that's the way that we turn back time. And Will has achieved his mission, and he's like, "Hooray! I'm relevant in season 2. My storyline paid off a lot more. Yay! No more awkward teen angst."
How much more intricate can you get, man? That's
oh, it's great. It's great.
Oh man.
All right, so yeah, that's the end of the season and presumably the end of this show. And like I said, Dragon, it's such a perfect ending that I really I mean, don't get me wrong. If there is a season 3 by some miracle, I it's not like I'm gonna be like, oh no, I'm not gonna watch a season 3. I mean, The Leftovers was kind of the same way, honestly. Season 2 of The Leftovers was perfect. But, yeah, if this really is the end, man, then I just hats off to the creative team because I think with Season 1 and Season 2, the best thing I can say about it is that it really is like a 2-act play. It's like we get all the setup and the tension of Season 1 with dealing with the loss, and then in Season 2 we kind of have these new beginnings and these different ideas and these payoffs to everything, and it really just kind of comes around to become a fantastic tapestry by the end of things. And Dragon, Jesus Christ, more people need to be talking about this show, man. Like, there should be more people talking about this show than us and AfterBuzz, for fuck's sake. I cannot stress it enough. People need to be checking this thing out. It really is just top of the line. Like, this should be event TV, Dragon. This really should be event TV, and it boggles my mind that it isn't. So that's my final thoughts, man. Just check it out, folks. By all means, we're all under fucking quarantine anyways, so if you want something to watch, this is it. I mean, God, if you want something that's even going to remotely strike up your Jim Carrey fandom, you can't go wrong here. All right, Dragon, final thoughts?
Final thoughts for me. This is a perfectly constructed season of television. We got remarkably fast. Basically, it's like a faster version of Watchmen, essentially, is the way we got this. But it was again, up the same caliber, even better, honestly. I like this even better than Watchmen, personally.
I mean, with Watchmen was very good, but I still argue that a couple of the side characters were, maybe a little bit too sidelined at the end there. And that's my main problem with Watchmen.
Sure.
Anyways.
And so Dave Holstein and company, they are masters of the storytelling craft, and I'm behind them whatever the next project is. Hopefully, maybe more of this. If I'm playing the odds, ever since I found out they're going to air these two at a time, which again now I kind of put together. Well, there's a chance it could have been because like each director did two at a time. That's probably not the reason. It's probably because basically, unfortunately, the ratings did not turn out good on this. Basically, they kind of went down a little each time, which bums me out.
This is a show that from the
Yeah,
beginning it struggled to find a fan base, and it's crazy to me. Like, because you would think Jim Carrey plus the recent resurgence of Mister Rogers and the
yeah,
way of
yeah.
rolling, it's I don't understand. I don't understand how this show just did not find its audience. But like I said, at the very least, we can revel in the fact that we got a second season and that they were able to tell the story they wanted to tell by all intents and purposes.
Yeah, and yeah, we don't need another season because we ended everything absolutely perfectly. I mean, chances are it's not going to be getting another one, but good news is that that's okay. It's okay that it doesn't get another one. For a change, we game the system the whole two season or like the one season cancellation. In this case, we
Gravity Falls only has two seasons, and it's one of the best animated shows of all time.
what
So,
I'm saying. Like we got the show got its ending. The show got the Foley tell again. It was always pitched as a two-part story. We got the two-part story. Anything else would have been gravy. But you know what? The meal was satisfactory. I don't need any. The meal was extra. Meal was exquisite. Let me rephrase it. The meal was a chef's kiss from Secret Chef in this case. You know the show was absolutely worth the wait because I was really bummed out about waiting for it. But if I knew this is what they had up their sleeves, like, oh yeah, I'm not. I'm in a rush for this at all, man. My God, look what they did with all that time. They made something truly beautiful, a work of art. And again, as a series, one of the beautiful, most captivating series I've seen. We're in a blessed age of television here, folks. We're getting stuff like Kidding. Watch it more. I hate that. Only AfterBuzz is the only other. Like, if I type in Kidding review, we got Bubkiss. Not except for
I know, totally.
just it's
I
sad.
hear you.
People watch it. You have no excuse not to watch it now. They're doing it's the first season's on Amazon for a while, and then basically beyond that'll be like for like a rental sort of thing. But the point being, folks, buy the show on DVD. Do whatever it takes. You buy it, stream it, get it, man. Do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see y'all later. Dragon, hit me with a good tag to end things out on.
Remember, kids, you can feel anything at all.
Anything at all. Anything at all.
all.
God. All right.